Lucas Hargrave wasn't supposed to be home. Not tonight. Not early. His private jet had landed hours ahead of schedule, and the towering glass of his estate loomed quiet under the moonlight. He entered without a word, his Italian shoes silent, against marble floors. The house smelled like cold stone and expensive nothingness. He moved fast, straight to Noah's bedroom. Empty. His stomach dropped. The bed, untouched. The toys, undisturbed. Lucas's pulse quickened. His mind, usually sharp, as razors, unraveled. He hated this feeling, helplessness. Noah? His voice cracked. He checked the bathroom, the office, the media room. Empty, empty, empty. He remembered the last time he'd lost track of his son, how it ended with helicopters, search teams, and silent headlines about autism and billionaire neglect. Not again. His throat tightened. He was already reaching for his phone when he heard it, a sound too soft to be a voice, breathing, controlled, calm. It led him toward the kitchen. And then he froze. In the warm light of the open-plan kitchen, Lucas saw something he didn't understand. His 8-year-old son, Noah, his silent boy, was sitting cross-legged on the cold tile floor, leaning gently against someone's shoulder, a woman. Elena, the black maid he barely remembered hiring. Her posture was still. Her eyes were half closed. She wasn't speaking. Neither was Noah. She just sat there, letting him rest against her, breathing in sync with him, as if they had both been waiting for this exact silence. Lucas didn't know how long he stood there, watching, minutes, maybe. Noah didn't look up. And for the first time in 5 months, Lucas saw something he hadn't seen since the divorce, since the collapse, since the diagnosis. His son looked distant, not frozen. Something inside Lucas stirred, a fracture in the cold certainty he wore like armor, a memory of Noah's small hand once holding his own. A birthday wish whispered before the world broke him. Now that same boy leaned against a stranger. Lucas's voice died in his throat. He watched as Elena, slowly, almost imperceptibly, adjusted her shoulder to keep Noah balanced. She didn't look at Lucas. She didn't need to. She knew he was there. The billionaire, the father, the man with no answers. Lucas swallowed hard and said nothing, because whatever spell this was, he was terrified to break it. When Noah finally shifted and blinked up at her, Elena whispered one word. Lucas couldn't hear it. Noah nodded. And for the first time in months, he moved without resistance. She guided him softly to his feet and walked him back toward the hallway, past Lucas without a word. Her presence a quiet storm. Lucas watched them disappear into the shadows of his own house. He stood alone in the kitchen, hands shaking, and that was when it hit him. His son had finally found comfort. In someone who wasn't him. The house was silent, not the silence of tension, not the silence of fear, a softer silence. Lucas Hargrave stood in the doorway of Noah's room. Unmoving. Noah lay asleep, his small chest rising and falling steadily. His stuffed rabbit rested beneath his chin. And beside him, seated on the floor, was Elena. She didn't speak, she just hummed a soft melody, steady and low, as if it were for herself more than him. Lucas didn't know the tune. He didn't need to. He felt it. Outside the house, beyond the thick glass, reporters waited. Cameras lined the gate. Questions would come. Statements would be demanded. He wouldn't give them one. Elena glanced up once, briefly meeting his eyes. He said nothing. She nodded once and continued humming. Lucas stepped back. Leaving them there, in the quiet Noah had chosen, he walked down the marble hallway, past the offices, the conference rooms, the walls lined with the awards that once defined him. He stopped by the window. The city lights flickered in the distance. He could almost hear the headlines being written, but tonight, he didn't care. Lucas closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Let them wonder." Outside, the storm of the world pressed in. Inside, his son slept. And for the first time in years, Lucas Hargrave's heart was quiet. At peace. Not because he had one, but because finally he had let go. Lucas Hargrave stood before the cameras. For once, he wasn't wearing a tie. His suit was wrinkled. His voice, usually sharp, precise, corporate, shook when he spoke. "I have no statement about the lawsuit." Flashbulbs clicked furiously. "But I will say this, he continued. Elena Adisa is not on trial. The crowd erupted in murmurs. She is not a manipulator. She is not dangerous. She's the first person who has been able to reach my son. He paused, swallowing hard. And I trust her. A silence heavier than any verdict followed. Then he walked away, leaving the microphones. The headlines, the empire to spin without him. By noon, Lucas had fired his legal team. By nightfall, he had drafted Elena's contract himself, a formal position. No more, Maid. No more silence. He offered her the title of Noah's full-time therapeutic caregiver. With private rights of guardianship in Lucas's absence, he placed the papers on her kitchen table. Elena stared at them. I didn't ask for this. Lucas's voice broke. I know. She hesitated. Why are you doing this? His answer was soft. Because Noah chose you before I did. Elena looked away, but she signed, not for him, for the boy sleeping upstairs. The next day, Mara called. She didn't threaten. She didn't scream. She simply said, You've chosen her. Lucas didn't deny it. Then you've lost me, she whispered. Lucas stared at the floor. I lost you a long time ago. The call ended. Corporate fallout came fast. Board members called emergency meetings. Shareholders screamed about public image. Lucas ignored them. For the first time in his life, he stopped protecting his empire and started protecting his son. That night, Lucas stood outside Noah's bedroom, listening to the soft hum of a lullaby. Elena's voice. Not medical. Not professional. Just human. Inside. Noah slept with his hand curled gently around hers, and Lucas realized something. This wasn't the end of his empire. It was the start of his freedom. The courtroom was silent, not quiet silent. Even the judge, perched high on the polished mahogany bench, sat frozen. The attorneys had stopped whispering. The reporters had stopped writing. The air itself felt suspended. Because Noah Hargrave, who hadn't spoken to anyone in months, was now standing. His small, thin frame stood beside the witness box. His head was lowered. His stuffed rabbit dangled from his left hand, ears dragging against the polished floor. And slowly, step by step, Noah crossed the room toward Elena. Elena stood utterly still, eyes wide, mouth parted, frozen by uncertainty, until Noah reached her. He didn't speak. He didn't look up. He just reached out and placed his trembling hand over hers. The courtroom broke. Mara gasped audibly. Jurors shifted in their seats, visibly shaken. One of the reporters dropped a pen that clattered loudly against the silence. Lucas felt the breath leave his body. It was so simple, and yet so impossible. Noah hadn't touched anyone willingly since the breakdown, since the diagnosis, since the collapse of Lucas's marriage, therapists, experts, his own father. No one. Until now. Elena knelt. She lowered herself slowly, as if she were afraid any sudden movement might shatter the moment. Her knees touched the marble floor. She whispered something no one else could hear. Noah nodded, and for a long, endless moment, the two of them just stayed there, child and woman, connected not by words but by survival. Lucas watched, powerless but not broken. Because in that moment, he understood. Elena wasn't the threat. She was the answer. The attorneys tried to recover. The judge called for order. Flashbulbs exploded from the back row, but Lucas didn't hear any of it. He only heard his son breathing softly. After the session recessed, Elena stood silently outside the courtroom doors. Lucas approached her. Noah stood at her side, gripping her hand like a lifeline. Lucas's voice cracked. You healed him. Elena shook her head slowly. I didn't heal him. Lucas's lips trembled. Then what did you do? She looked up at him, eyes hollow but honest. I just didn't leave. And for the first time in years, Lucas Hargrave, the man who could buy anything, realized some things couldn't be bought. They had to be trusted. By the end of the week, it was official. Elena Adisa versus Mara Hargrave, filed under claims of negligence, emotional manipulation, endangerment of a child. The lawsuit wasn't about money. It was about ownership. And Lucas knew it. The courtroom was packed. Cameras, reporters, legal analysts whispering from the back rows. A billionaire's son caught between a black maid with a dead brother and a mother who could weaponize grief. Lucas sat stiff in the gallery, jaw tight. He wasn't called to testify. Not yet. But he was the one being watched. The hearing was quick. Murat's attorney painted Elena as a predator, a woman with no credentials. No formal therapeutic training, no right to be near a vulnerable child. The words unstable and dangerous were used like scalpels. Lucas felt each one cut him. Elena didn't flinch. When the judge asked her counsel if the defendant wished to respond, Elena stood herself. "I'll speak." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Her voice was calm, flat, exhausted. "I didn't treat Noah. I didn't claim to. I didn't heal him." She paused, eyes flickering to Lucas, then Noah, who sat silently beside his court-appointed child. "Advocate," I sat beside him. "Silence? That's all." The opposing attorney objected. The judge sustained, but the jury had heard. Lucas's hands trembled under the table. When recess was called, he found her in the hallway. Her skin looked pale under the harsh lights. Her eyes ringed with exhaustion. "You shouldn't have spoken," he said quietly. "I wasn't speaking to them." Lucas swallowed. "Elena." She cut him off, voice thinner now. "If they take him from me, he'll stop speaking." Lucas felt the weight of the entire empire he built collapse onto his shoulders. Outside the courthouse, the media storm raged. Hargrave's Maid, fraud, or fall woman? Child neglect lawsuit, Noah in the middle. Elena Adisa, the woman who broke a billionaire. Lucas's publicist begged him to denounce Elena. Murat's lawyers demanded he publicly distance himself. Investors threatened to pull, but Noah refused to speak to anyone. No therapists. No court officials. Not even Lucas. He sat, eyes hollow. Silent. Until Elena entered the room. Then, and only then, Noah whispered 3 words. "Don't let go." Lucas stood alone that night in his penthouse. He looked at the press release his corporate team had drafted for him, a statement clearing the company and disowning Elena. His finger hovered over the approval button. He never pressed it. Instead, he picked up his phone. And called his lawyer. "I need you to drop my counsel." "Sir? I'm not defending the company anymore." "Then what are you doing?" Lucas's voice cracked. "I'm defending her." It broke before dawn. Lucas awoke to his phone vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. He ignored it twice. By the 3rd call from his publicist, he answered. And the world shifted beneath him. "Sir? It's Elena." The headlines hit like gunshots. Billionaire. Hargrave hires Maid linked to child death scandal. Murdered brother, the hidden past of Hargrave's black nanny. Who's watching the air? Photos of Elena's hospital days. A blurred image of her brother in a grainy picture of her walking Noah through the gardens. Lucas sat at the edge of his bed, unable to move. Elena's face filled every screen. Every headline, and His Noah was now part of the storm. By noon, he knew who was behind it. Mara. His ex-wife. When he barged into her penthouse, she didn't even flinch. "Why?" Lucas's voice cracked. Mara poured herself a drink. "I told you. She's dangerous." She saved him. "She lied." Lucas slammed the crystal tumbler from her hand, shattering it. "You destroyed her." Mara looked him dead in the eye. "I protected Noah." Her calm terrified him more than any rage could. "She's not who you think she is," Mara whispered. "And I won't lose my son to a stranger who knows how to bleed." Lucas's throat burned. "I didn't lose him to her," he said hoarsely. "I lost him to you." Mara stepped back, wounded for the first time, but Lucas didn't care. He left. By evening, reporters camped outside the estate. Cameras, questions, microphones shoved against tinted windows. Lucas locked the house down. He watched Elena from behind the glass walls. She stood alone at the far end of the garden. She wasn't crying, she wasn't running, she was just still. When Lucas approached, she finally turned. Her voice was soft. "It was her, wasn't it?" Lucas couldn't answer. Elena nodded, as if she'd always known. "I'll leave." "No, Lucas, you're not leaving." A long silence. Finally, she whispered, "They'll turn him against me." Lucas's heart cracked. "No, I won't let them." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure if he was making a promise or a lie. In the distance, Noah watched them from the window. Silent. Unmoving. And for the first time, Lucas feared losing not just his son, but the only person who understood him. Lucas Hargrave waited until Noah was asleep, then he called her. Elena stood in the hallway, arms crossed, expression unreadable as Lucas said the words he'd rehearsed all day. "You're done here." She didn't flinch. Didn't argue, just stood there. Lucas's throat tightened. "You lied about who you were. You got into this house under a false name. That's not up for debate." Still, nothing, no apology, no plea. Finally, Elena spoke. "If you make me leave," she said softly, "you'll lose him again." The words hit harder than Lucas expected. "Don't threaten me. I'm not." He stepped forward, voice breaking. "You think I don't know how to protect my own son?" She shook her head. "Not cruel, not kind. Just certain. You know how to protect him from everything but himself?" Lucas's anger cracked into something worse. Helplessness. "What do you want from me?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Nothing," she replied. "That's impossible. I didn't come here for you, Mr. Hargrave." Her eyes flickered. "I came here for him." Lucas looked away, unable to hold her gaze. Elena continued, quieter now. "I didn't fix him. I didn't heal him. I just stayed still long enough for him to stop running." Lucas felt it in his bones. The argument he came prepared to win was over. He nodded, defeated. "Stay." She said nothing, but he saw the smallest exhale leave her chest. She turned and walked away. Lucas stood in the hallway. Long after she disappeared, heart pounding, that night, Lucas lay awake in his king-sized bed, the city skyline glowing beyond the glass walls. He couldn't stop replaying her words. "I didn't come here for you." He didn't know why that cut deeper than anything else. Then he heard it, a soft shuffle, the faintest sound, and before he could react he felt it, a small weight crawling onto the bed beside him. Lucas turned his head. Noah. His son lay beside him, silent, staring at the ceiling. Lucas didn't speak. Didn't dare. Noah rested his head on Lucas's arm. And closed his eyes. Lucas broke. Tears fell silently down his cheeks as he lay there, frozen, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid to lose whatever this was. His son, who had rejected his touch for nearly a year, now clung to him without a word, and Lucas knew the truth. It wasn't because of him. It was because of her. In the darkness, Lucas wept. Not just for Noah, but for himself, because comfort, he realized, always comes with a price. And in this house, the price was his pride. Lucas Hargrave didn't like loose ends. He built empires by erasing them. Elena had become a loose end. By the end of the week, his private security chief placed a thin, unmarked folder on Lucas's desk. "Thought you'd want to see this, sir." Lucas opened it without a word. Page after page of nothing. No social security verification. No employment history under the name Elena Brooks. No academic records. Not even a tax return. She didn't exist until she did. On the final page, a photo grainy, captured from a hospital surveillance feed. Elena, 5 years younger, wearing scrubs stained with blood, hair shorter, eyes darker. Next to her, a small boy with thick glasses clutching her sleeve. A boy who looked too much like Noah. Lucas's breath caught. "Who is he?" he asked. His security chief hesitated. "Her brother." Lucas's heart tightened. "Name, Michael Adisa," the man continued, tone clinical. "Autistic, 8 years old. Died during a transport delay from Oak Ridge Children's Trauma Center 5 years ago. The case became public briefly. Pediatric negligence claim filed under Elena Adisa. She sued the hospital system. Lucas's hands clenched. "She lost the case," the chief added. "Why?" "System ruled it procedural failure, no liability." Lucas stared at the folder. "And after that?" "Nothing." She disappeared. "Yes, sir." Lucas closed the file. The silence between them said everything. "Leave," Lucas whispered. He waited until the door clicked shut before he let himself breathe again. Elena Adisa, not Elena Brooks. She lied to him, to Noah, to everyone. But why? Lucas's mind spun in cold, calculated spirals. She had slipped into his house under a false name, into his son's life. And now Noah was clinging to her when she was the one who had once lost a boy. Just like him. What did that make her? A savior or a threat? That night, Lucas watched her from the security feeds. Alone in the house library. She sat on the floor beside Noah. He leaned silently against her, eyes half closed. Her hand rested protectively on his shoulder. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Neither did Noah. Lucas watched until dawn, and every second he fought the war inside him. Logic said to remove her, to fire her, to protect Noah from whatever tragedy had followed her here, but his heart whispered something darker. She understood Noah more than Lucas ever could. When the morning came, Lucas didn't sleep. He sat in his office staring at the folder, at her real name, at the boy in the photo, and for the first time in years, Lucas Hargrave, the man who controlled everything, realized he didn't know what to do, and that terrified him. The house was silent, always silent, until Lucas heard it. A voice, small, fragile, from the hallway. He left his office at once, heart slamming against his ribs, unsure whether he imagined it. Noah stood in the doorway, barefoot, holding his stuffed gray rabbit, eyes blank but his lips parted. Lucas froze. Noah whispered, "Where's Elena?" It was the first sentence Lucas had heard from his son in 7 months. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He barely remembered how. Instead, he watched as Noah clutched the rabbit tighter, rocking slightly, waiting for her. Not him, Elena. Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat and knelt. His voice cracked. She's in the kitchen." Noah didn't respond. He simply turned, walking away without another word. Lucas stayed kneeling on the marble floor long after Noah disappeared down the hall. He felt hollow and humiliated. Minutes later, he found Elena. She was slicing apples in the kitchen with surgical precision, as if she hadn't heard the one thing that shattered Lucas's world. "I want to know what you did," Lucas said. Voice strained. Elena looked up, wiping her hands calmly. "I didn't do anything." "Don't lie to me." She said nothing. "Noah just asked for you. He hasn't spoken to anyone in months, not even me." Elena paused, her eyes unreadable. "He trusts silence." Lucas frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Elena placed the knife down slowly. "It means ... I don't feel it." Before Lucas could argue, her expression shifted, something softer, something tired. "Sit down," she said quietly. He obeyed, unsure why. "I worked in trauma centers," she admitted. Voice distant, eyes fixed on the cutting board. "Years ago, pediatric units, children who stopped talking. Not autistic, not always, just broken." Lucas blinked, confused. "I didn't teach them to speak," she continued. "I let them be heard." Her fingers trembled slightly before she forced them still. Lucas watched her, struggling to place this version of the woman he'd written off as the maid. She wasn't supposed to have a past, certainly not one that made sense. "Why aren't you doing that anymore?" he asked, softer now. Elena's silence was heavier than any answer. A shadow flickered behind her gaze. Then it was gone. She picked up the knife again. "I told you, I didn't do anything." Lucas sat there, unsure if he believed her, unsure if he wanted to. All he knew was that Noah somehow did, and Lucas hated himself for envying his own son. By morning, Lucas Hargrave had made a decision. He watched Elena more closely. She moved through the house like a shadow, silent, precise, deliberate. Her uniform was always neat, her answers short. She never volunteered conversation. She never smiled at Lucas, but never disrespected him either. She kept to herself, except when it came to Noah. That was where the rules broke. Lucas watched from behind glass walls as his son, his unreachable son, followed Elena from room to room, not clinging, not dependent, just ... choosing her. As if her quiet presence gave him permission to exist again. Lucas felt it every time. The stab of jealousy. Noah didn't respond to tutors. He didn't respond to therapists. He didn't even respond to Lucas, but with her, there was something, a connection, and Lucas didn't know whether to trust it or fear it. Later that week, he confronted the only person he hated speaking to more than himself, his ex-wife. "I'm telling you, Lucas," Mara said flatly, sipping wine in her penthouse suite overlooking the river. "Maids like that? They always want something." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She smirked. "All sharp edges and silk." "You know exactly what it means." Lucas said nothing. "She got in your house fast," Mara continued. "No references. No online trail, no clear hiring paperwork. And now your son's obsessed with her? She's playing you. Noah's responding to her, for now, until she gets what she wants. And what is that? Maraz's smile turned cruel. Your name. Your money? Your protection. Women like her don't knock on billionaire doors for a job. And they knock for a future. Lucas stood, ending the conversation without a word, but her accusations clung to him. That night, Lucas returned to the estate. Noah was asleep, Elena was, cleaning the library alone. Calm, methodical. He watched from the doorway. Elena, he said softly. She didn't flinch. Why did you come here? He asked. She looked up, expression unreadable. For work. Why, Noah? Her gaze softened, just for a moment. He chose me. Lucas's throat tightened. He wanted to ask more, but something about her tone, the quiet finality, made him stop. Elena returned to wiping the bookshelves, leaving Lucas standing like a stranger in his own house. Hours later, after midnight, Lucas sat alone in his office. He pulled up the internal security logs from his estate's hiring files. Elena's background check was blank. No university. No prior employers. No social media. No references. Just a name, and even that, Lucas wasn't sure was real. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. He didn't trust her, but every time he tried to imagine the house without her, he remembered Noah's breathing slowing against her shoulder. Lucas closed the file and left it open in his mind, because fascination was just another form of fear, and he wasn't ready to let go of either.